And like Vanessa said, we're demonstrating like today's presentation is actual in practice of what Painted Brain is doing to really build teams out and ensure that we build a workforce that's whole and healthy. So thank you for having us. And now I'll pass the introduction to Tristan Scremen.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tristan Scremen. I am a person with schizophrenia. I'm an immigrant to this country. Spanish was my first language. Other aspects of myself, I'm a person with dyslexia, so that's another aspect of myself. Sometimes these are like invisible disabilities, and people don't see this, but it's a big part of my life. I started volunteering at Painted Brain in 2013. I started working at Painted Brain in 2014. I'll share a little bit of that. I did go to school and I got degrees, but work was kind of like the final frontier for me in a lot of ways. And Painted Brain helped me navigate that process really well. I'll talk more about this when we get further down, but I think Painted Brain is a very unique organization and has a lot of things to offer. So I don't know if I'll pass that back.
Thank you, Tristan. Yeah, so, thank you, Rayshell. Thank you, Tristan. And hello, all. I got to give a shout out to Anna, who's on here. Anna, hi. I appreciate you. You matter. And I'm just honored to collaborate you in so many ways. Today's presentation is dedicated to my teacher, our teacher, Commissioner Tina Wooten, who passed, but her spirit is with us. And Tina always told me to take care of the tears. And Tina, took care of people who are like, I believe, all of us in here, and not care in a dependent way, but care in a very vulnerable way, and in our little verbiage, we talked about how, working requires that we suit up and show up, and we know that showing up isn't always easy, so sharing the gift of vulnerability with others as they navigate employment, we know to be true. So we know that peer principles and peer practices are something that we talk about, and it's something that we encourage others, right? We want people to become peer providers, to provide peer services, but a lot of times we find that within the peer workforce, we're not like Anna said, we're not walking that talk. So we're talking it, but a lot of times internally, we're not walking that, and it's one thing to hire people, it's one thing to take volunteers on, but it's another thing really to maintain those peer teams. So for me, I know that work was something that was very overwhelming. A part of my life, I navigated on the street, and I had an image that my family and that I were comfortable with, right? So I was the quote unquote crazy one, where I was not well, and I was always dependent. So if I called, it was, I needed something, and that's what, even when I didn't need something, and one of the things that started to happen was that my family grew a dependency on me being dependent on them. So when I started working, it was really threatening, not only to me, but it was really threatening for them, because all of a sudden they didn't know what was going to happen if I actually got my act together, And I see Sonny nodding his head, right? Sonny, so thank you for that, and thank you, Anne, because you guys let us know that we are not alone. And and it was through those small employment opportunities, that I had. I remember back in the day before TDAP certification, being in and out of detoxes and treatment centers. I remember, finally, phasing up and getting to work at the canteen. And I remember, how showing up was such a big deal. And then I remember when I got my first tech job, and then I remember I started doing, I was so young when I got playing that I remember doing assessments, youth assessments, and little by little my career grew. And one of the things I want to talk about is how trauma happens, right? So trauma-informed employment, and I know that when trauma happened for me, it was about 6 years into my recovery last go around, where all of a sudden some personal, sexual incest history experiences that was buried so deep came up. And even though I was surviving and thriving in my recovery, there were certain parts of me that I had not yet to explore. And I remember working with an individual, and all of a sudden they shared something, and it really stirred some stuff up in me. And little by little, I started to disconnect from my recovery program. Little by little, I started to deviate at work. And the joy that I started to feel slowly faded. And I ended up loaded one more time. By the grace of God, this time around, I had 10 years. I do practice, complete abstinence, which for me works. But I am, a harm reduction baby, so it's like I got to keep harm reduction strategies. So, it's like you don't have to do it the way I do it. This is just for me and mine. But this time around, one of the things that I was able to do is maintain my independence while navigating recovery and being a cousin amongst cousins, a granddaughter amongst granddaughters. And what I'm getting at is that when I started to heal from the incest that happened, my family became very shut down. And because I've had a way to maintain my own life through my own employment, luckily I had a safe place. But should I have not had employment, I don't know where I would be today. So, if you heard anything in my story, I hope that you hear the continuum of recovery, that recovery is not always in a line. It goes up, down, and all around, but it is through my personal employment that I've been able to maintain, stability, so that I have a safe haven, that I have. I have a little altar at home with, pictures of me as a little girl and my first dog and cat and, my kids and stuff. And it's just a very safe place for me to look at, but it's through my employment that I'm able to pay my bills to maintain that, so as I share, I want to, share the time. And, Rayshell, one of the reasons why I thought, who better than to share, my afternoon with than with you, because of the love, Rayshell, that you put into your team, the care, the order. You still maintain, an honest ship and a tight ship, right? Because we know that we need structure. So you have an org chart, and there are, managers and supervisors and pure staff, but one of the things that I wanted to ask you is like, how do you build and maintain those pure teams?
Thank you. And I just want to say, honor Vanessa's story. That was so brave of you to share that. Really, Vanessa, and I just want to, hold that space to honor you and just to say I'm proud of you. That is just so amazing. And then just in the words of Vanessa's mentorship and honoring Tina, Commissioner Wooten, there is no empowerment without employment. And so that really, one of my passions is ensuring that folks have the ability to sustain and maintain their ability to thrive. So how we build and maintain a strong team here at Painted Brain, it really starts for us with our values. Today, I spoke on, we had our wellness retreat. So I believe that that's a way that we demonstrate to our commitment to building and maintaining a team. But I started off with like letting them know of like what our values are, and then wanting to hear and to empower them to really think about, reflect on their values. So I think the framework of building and maintaining a team is really having a value system, like as the framework, and then being able to, demonstrate and, voice that value system and through our trainings. So that has been the first step. So it's like a couple of steps. And then So I'd say step one is, creating and, disseminating, your strategy on like what your value system is, and then being able to get buy-in, consensus building, and so people understand their values and then they believe in it. The second thing, of course, is continuous like training, being able to provide trainings on peer, like you said, peer practices, on the law, like today, before, like not just peer services, but like empowering them with management and human resource practices so that they can understand the structure of like, how do we function like and follow the law so that we can maintain our team, and then I think it's a lot of like meeting people where they're at. I mean, at Painted Brain, we are a peer-run organization. Like myself, I am a person with lived experience and, a survivor of some of the same abuses and traumas that Vanessa has expressed. So me as a leader, I'm able to put myself in the shoes of the individuals, our most vulnerable individuals on our team, because we all show up, especially us as peers, that are differently able, who are LGBTQ plus, BIPOC. So really being able to meet them where they're at. And I believe that Tristan really embodies that as a peer manager, really being able to empower our peer managers to have those supervisions and disclosing and to have those peer conversations and creating a culture that supports and promotes us, like listening to our folks and not just talking at them. So for me, like some of the key steps, like I said, I'm just gonna repeat it, like, making sure, so there's some chats, so making sure we can read those chats, but making sure that you have a value-based system and that folks understand your values. At Painted Brain, we believe that arts, advocacy, and enterprise is the framework to empowering and engaging our most vulnerable individuals in our society, and of course, creating those solutions. And then, like we said, creating the structure with HR training, policies, and procedures so that folks understand, that this is a job, but then also being able to meet them where they're at, having workplace accommodations, creating an HR structure and working with professionals so that they understand peer practice and peer principles, and that we create customized HR practices that, embody that, and then that culture of, mutual support and mutuality. Of course, like Vanessa said, there is an org chart, we have a structure, but with our clinicians and our peer staff and with our managers, there is a mutuality in the midst of, having and running a company. And I just want to empower all the peer leaders and then just even the peer employees. Like Vanessa says, you do matter. We can make it. There are organizations that provide so much support and empowerment, like Painted Brain, because you know what, like we said, like if we really want to empower and to build communities, there's no empowerment without employment. You're gonna need to be able to support yourself. So for Painted Brain, our biggest and our most important asset is our human resources. And so like as we are here right now, in Carlsbad, California, with some of the heavy hitters, subject matter experts, with Karis Meyer, Vanessa Ramos, our HR staff, just to do that wraparound empowerment support for our staff and give them not only tools to support our staff, our human resources, but to empower themselves. Tonight we have the sound baths, we have mindfulness, we have a training on creating a culture of constructive communication and accountability, so that, sometimes they count us out as peers. They're like, oh, the peers can't do it. Yes, we can do it. We can be accountable. We can provide mutual support, and our leaders can empower peer managers like Tristan to be able to motivate and engage their staff so that they can meet them where they're at. So if you don't leave with anything like those three things, and then I don't know if Vanessa has more questions for Tristan. She's facilitating this.
Thank you, Rayshell. And I mean, you guys heard it best. And I just got a shout out to Polly Ann. I've known Polly Ann since I was 17 years old, right? There's just so much. Yes. But, Rayshell, like a few things just on what you said that I thought was just really cool. And I'm just so glad that you shared, with all, is that the Painted Brain has taken the broader the base So with the recovery program that I affiliate myself with, they're just saying, the broader the base, the higher the point of freedom, right? So like one of the things that I find very fascinating about Painted Brain is that, as they grow, they stop today, right? Because they want to broaden their base. They want to make sure that their managers, are practicing those self-care practices. They want to make sure that their managers have time, with an HR consultant who will train, on certain items that they may have not, that may have not come up yet, right? Because, as care organizations and with the rollout of SB 803, there's a lot of money being thrown at mental health, right? Like all of a sudden, when I heard President Biden talking about peers, I was like, what? So like as we grow, may we model some of that, Rayshell, what you modeled, where you pause, right? You take time for the team to make sure, like, hey, we're going to do an HR training. If there are any questions, right? How do communication practices get expanded? What parts of the handbook should we add to or take away from? So I really want to thank you, for modeling that, for role modeling that, and then Tristan, a question that I have for you, that we have for you is, will you share with us a little bit about like that trauma-informed employment practices and like how you started, if you're comfortable with it, and where you're at now?
I know we spoke a little bit about this. I'll tell a little bit of my story now. I am a person with schizophrenia. I was diagnosed when I was 20 years old. I spent time in Patton State Hospital. I spent about 4 years institutionalized in the state hospital. I spent about 10 years living in border care homes and halfway houses of different kinds. I also, lived with the trauma of schizophrenia, right? Like for many years in my life, it wasn't true. I don't believe in the delusions I had, but at that time, I was certain that someone was going to do something terrible to me, kill me, dissect me, do experiments on me. It was horrible, horrible, horrible thoughts that were going on in my head. And I couldn't get rid of it. I would take medicine. At first I didn't want the medicine. I'd spit it out, all this kind of stuff. I say that to give some of the context, right? For me, some of that is still with me today, right? I don't pay attention to it and I try not to feed it, but some of it is with me. I was able to go back to school. I got a bachelor's from Cal State Northridge. Then I went to this really cool school called People's College of Law, which was a law school meant for people who are interested in public interest. After that, I did an internship at Mental Health Advocacy Services, which is one of Painted Brain's partners now. And I met Jim Price, the director, and Pam Marks, who's my supervising attorney. I got a lot of feedback from them. They helped me in a lot of ways. I took the bar 5 times. I never passed. I don't think it was meant for me to be a lawyer practicing law. Somehow the universe set it up so that didn't happen. And probably for the best in some ways. Then I went back to school and I got a degree from Antioch in creative writing. And then I started working for Painted Brain. So my senior project at Antioch had me do an internship at Painted Brain. This is 2014. I'd already been volunteering and then I started getting paid. So I got 4 hours a week. That's how I started, 4 hours a week. And you know what happened? I had to quit 3 times before I could be full-time. I started working, I had symptoms, I had psychosis, I had to stop. At that time, one of the times I stopped, I had this delusion that there were, a lot of my delusional experience had to do with science and experimentation and, they're doing experiments on animals. I thought they were experimenting on humans. I thought I was being, experimented. It was very scary stuff. And no matter what people told me, they'd say, it's probably not happening, Tristan, it's okay. But it was hard to deal with that, to have that strong belief that this is happening and have everyone in the world telling you this is not happening, right? So it's a type of trauma. It's a really isolating experience to have psychosis, to have a break from reality where what you believe is true, 99.9, there are some people who say, yeah, I think that's happening. I don't know which one was better, right? Some people are saying, yeah, that is happening. And it made me sick. It made me sicker, right? It made me sick. In some ways, it made me sicker because I was thinking like, oh my God, this is happening, So it was like no matter what happened, you know, I had trauma, you know, and like, I think work was the final frontier for me in a lot of ways. I was able to graduate from college, so I was able to do that. I did a lot of volunteer work, so I was a volunteer professor at People's College of Law. I taught contracts and legal writing. I was able to do that. I was able to create lesson plans, you know, judge papers, all this kind of stuff. But work was really hard for me. It was really hard. And thank you for sharing that about your mentor, about, you know, there's no empowerment without employment. You know, I think that, you know, I'm one of those people that counted out. You know, Tristan has institutionalized, he's been diagnosed, he's on medication, he needs to sleep 12 hours a day. He'll never be able to work full time. Even my own family thought this, you know, like my parents were like, okay, we're going to try and figure out something for Tristan because he can't work, you know. And they talked to my brother and my sister, and they were like, you know, just look out for Tristan. I was kind of like the special one, you know, and in a good way, you know, not in a bad way, but it's still, even though it was in a good way, it hurts us, right? Because we think like, I'll never be able to produce, I'll never be able to support myself. And I honestly believe that about myself, you know, like I internalized that completely. And I think that was part of the difficulty I had at Painted Brain. And Rayshell, thank you. And thank you, Painted Brain, because, you know, I don't think I could have worked anywhere else. I really don't. I think it was one of those things that like, I think like somehow the spirit world, or I don't know what it was, they lined me up to join Painted Brain, you know, and because of that openness that Painted Brain has, now I am a full-time worker. And not only that, I supervise people. I sign timesheets. I do HR stuff, like stuff that was like, I don't know, am I ever going to be able to do that? And every time it seemed like insurmountable or too difficult. You know, I had many conversations with Rayshell, with Dave, with Eli, with Kevin, with tons of people inside of Painted Brain. And you know what they told me? It says, Tristan, you're a hard worker. You know, you work hard, you complete the task. And I think I was given that opportunity, right?
Yeah.
And the same thing, like trauma informed, like they didn't say like, oh, you didn't work the last. Remember, I quit 3 times. So each time I said, okay, please, you know, take me back. I think I'm ready now. You know? And each time they allowed me to come back, and they built me up slowly, right? They said, okay, let's start with a few hours, and eventually, you know, I mean, I can't even believe it since I think about it. It's like, you know, it's weird. Like one of the things I always wanted when I was taking antipsychotic, I took antipsychotic since I was 20. I'm 48 years old now, so a long time. And because of antipsychotic, I never could wake up in the morning.
Right. And that's real.
I remember that.
I never could wake up in the morning. And
But look now.
the doctor told me, take your medicine at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. By 10 o'clock, you'll be asleep. And by 8 in the morning, you'll be awake. And that's what I did. And it worked.
And Tristan is the earliest bird. He teaches the peer training class at 7 a.m. in the morning now to build our staff capacity.
Yeah.
And thank you, thank you, Tristan, for that, and like how, and one of the things that I do want to just, elevate in peer support. And Vera, I see you, my friend. How are you, Vera? One of the things that I do want to share, Tristan, is that you give me a lot of hope. Earlier this week, Tristan and I were talking, and some of you know my little brother was featured on channel 11, 7, 2. It just he really had a hard time last year, and in August, there was a huge incident that happened at my grandmother's house, and he was taken in, and he has been found incompetent to stand trial, and I go see him at LA Twin Towers. And Rayshell, thank you for providing me peer support. When I go see him, I'm like, I'm on my way, I just got out, and that really matters to me. And when I talk to my family, they say, how's Joshua doing? How's Josh doing? And I go, he's great. I want to take him with me to Kauai in 5 years, and he's gonna work, and right. And I was telling Tristan how my family was like, work? What do you mean he's gonna work? There you go, talking all that nonsense. Leave him alone. He can't work. It's like, why? And right when I was feeling so defeated, like why would we block people from employment, right? Why would we put people in these
why would we pigeonhole people? You know, it's like one of the things I had to, and that's the best of what they know. But when we know better, we do better. And we as peers know better. Us that we're here at the SHARE conference, shout out to Ruth, you know, and Libby and the SHARE team, you know, thank you for hosting us, but like we know better, right? So to hear Tristan's story, right, may we not only, you know, feel inspired to give the next person an opportunity, right, and to create policies and procedures where, you know, where when someone hires on, you tell them like, hey, you know what, trauma may happen, and it probably will. So you cannot just show up to work, right? Because we have, you know, work to do, you know, we depend on you. But if you start to feel like you can't show up, here are the steps, you know, and then sharing those experiences on how we've navigated that, you know. So Tristan, thank you. You know, when I see you, I know that my little brother, you know, has a chance, you know, and I mean that wholeheartedly. Like, it's like you are that example. And sometimes we don't know who comes into your life and why or how, but who would have thought, you know, who would have thought? Rayshell, yeah, okay, so we're gonna take a few questions.
Or if you want to just.
Yeah, so question that we have for you, Rayshell, is how many staff does Painted Brain have? How many levels of management, and how do you handle staff evaluations? Can you talk about how you have handled growing pains and maintaining a pure family? What I mean,
Oh, because that's to the point, right? Ruth just went right in. I think that this is being transparent. Like we're right, literally. That's shout out to Ruth right there, keeping it real. Wait, did we just become best friends? Okay. So yeah, so I think that's the point. That was our intention, Ruth. We have 40 employees at Painted Brain. We have a mix of clinical and peer staff. We have three levels of management. We have our board of directors, and then we have our executive team. We receive weekly coaching from a subject matter expert to support us and building it out. And the PWI grant, the Workforce Investment Grant, really helped us to figure that out, because those were some of the challenges that I'm going to address in your question, Ruth, relative to how do we maintain this supportive environment and then adhere to like HR laws and expectations, because that, I think that's the challenge. And that's why we bought our managers here today. Like we flew in a manager in human resources, and she got a chance to understand peer practices and principles and adjusted a training so that it integrated, you know, the law and, you know, and expectations and evaluations. So one of the sections that we had in our training, and we're going to have a follow-up section in the training, is on evaluations and performance management, because that definitely is a challenge. I mean, that was a challenge. It's a challenge in general, but then when you're working with folks with individual disabilities, as you know, the folks that are leaders, it creates an extra layer of opportunity, I'd say, and challenges. So yeah, I think that it's evolving. I definitely would like to come back and talk directly on, we're definitely changing our policies on evaluations. And I think in the next couple of weeks, we should have a new tool, because our manager, that was one of the biggest things that staff and managers wanted to address with us. How do we handle evaluations and performances when folks are struggling, and what's the expectation? And I know SHARE is a lot larger than us, but we wanted ours to come from our managers and from our folks. So now we're going to be putting in new policies and tools, and this is this retreat to start that. And then how do you talk about the growing? We're talking about now. We have Karis Meyer that's coming here, because one of the biggest issues we have was like, you know, we're growing so fast, and we were like, where do we have this culture? We need a culture of accountability, but we need to have positive communication and constructive communication. So that's our intention. This is the theme of this training is the year of visibility, because we are so visible, and we need to step it up. We need to step it up in our accountability so that we can meet our contract obligations. So yeah, I think that to answer your question, I hope to train on it in the next, to provide the tool. I mean, I think it'll be a good tool that we're developing, and some policies and procedures that we felt that didn't fit necessarily the law of kind of like, you know, the warning and then the write-up, I mean, we do have a performance, we call it a PIP, a performance improvement plan that we utilize a lot. But we have a lot of work to do because of the trauma that most of us have, as leaders, have experienced. I mean, I've worked in city government, I've worked in counties, I've worked, in private sectors. And because of the trauma that us as, executive leaders that we experienced, we kind of went the opposite way of being like overly caring and overly, and then, we had carers and other people like, oh no, you have to, there's rules, and you have to, if you want folks to be empowered to maybe, if they don't want to work at Painted Brain forever, how are you going to prepare them to be able to succeed, in the real workplace where there are expectations. So yes, we're still evolving, and we're talking about the growing pains right now. And that's why we're having this retreat. And we hope to put in, we have supervision, regular supervision with our managers. I meet with most of our managers weekly. And our managers have supervision. Tristan has supervision with a number of folks. So that accountability system of the peer supervision, not because we do have clinical staff. So I just want to be real clear. Me and Tristan particularly provide peer supervision. We do have a clinical team that provides clinical supervision. And we feel very strong. And I think also another growing pain was that Painted Brain needed to really ensure that we created a culture and an environment of mutuality amongst the peer staff and our clinicians, so that we weren't treating and people feeling like they were treating each other. And, so that was one of the biggest, I think, growing pains as well, and being a hybrid company. But yeah, we're 5 years in. I mean, we've been around. Dave started the project in, 2006, but we didn't incorporate me and Eli and Dave until 2016. So we are a case study. I call us a niche nonprofit where we can, I hope that we can, be able to share more best practices. We are smaller, but I think that bigger organizations can really learn some different things from us. And I'm a really transparent leader, so definitely willing to share any documents that folks, want to see our performance improvement plan. We're putting in those new policies and procedures relative to performance and how we onboard. That was this whole training today, but from the peer perspective. And, the clinicians didn't have any, didn't hear any objections. So we're really leading with our peer practices, but this is our year of visibility and accountability. I know we have the chat is going down.
Yeah,
I'm like going like this. I'm trying
It
to.
really is.
So yeah, go ahead. This is an open up,
Yeah,
right? This is the dialogue
this
roundtable.
is the total dialogue, a round table. So then another question that we had is, it says, anything in particular that you have found that has really helped people stick around? And it says also, Painted Brain seems like it's a super friendly and inviting environment. I'd love to know what you, as directors and supervisors, do to keep that family feel strong in your organization.
Okay, so the first question was what?
What have you found that helps people stick around?
Well, I'll let Tristan's I have an answer to everything, but I'm gonna let Tristan, who is one of our employees, like our founding employees.
I think I have the sense of some of this question, but I'll just tell a little bit of the stories about Painted Brain. Like, some of the people we work with, we have a number of grants to help people, and some of the folks we work with, myself included, I basically had to become a criminal to get the help I needed, and I went into the forensic system. So one of the things Painted Brain does is have pathways for folks who come out of these systems. And some of our really amazing employees.
Some of the best.
It's really interesting. It's like, I don't know what it is about it, but like, it's a different kind of practice at Painted Brain. I think there's a lot of that just foundational understanding, that trauma is a real thing.
The community, right, Tristan?
Community feel.
Yeah, I recently had the honor, and just so you guys know, I signed my offer letter today with Disability Rights California. So I'm the new community organizer on the public policy team. Woo! I just had to say that because I'm just so excited by that. Yay! So I'll be reaching out to some of you guys. Please put your information in the chat because, statewide community organizing is important and Disability Rights California don't play. So, it's like we are
definitely, you know, I want to share that. But as I share that, one of the things that I started to do is I started to, you know, visit different places, and Painted Brain is family to me. You know, I do contract work with them, you know, but they are a part of my family. And one of the things that to answer that question is I checked out their community center off of Pico and Fairfax. And I walked in and it was so beautiful. You walk in, and Ruth, you would love it because it's very, you know, no rules on the wall, none of that. It's like you walk in and it's, you know, us, people like us, they have a table and people are working on art projects, and everyone has like the staff people, and then they have like their volunteers. So like the staff, you know, if you could tell who the staff is, not because they're power tripping, but because they have like it's almost like, well, it's not almost, it is a community. So like they have like the person who's on the computer and such and all these different things, but then it was like everybody there was just flowing. So I think one of the things that you do to keep that family feel strong in your organization is, you know, you create those pathways like Tristan was saying, right? So like Rayshell applies for those grants that make room for you to build in jobs that create those paths, right? You have those policies where you're not doing these gnarly criminal background checks. You know, I remember like getting the drug and alcohol job. You know, I'm a Delphi. You know what I mean? Alcohol, you know, I mean, shit, I'm 7. You know, it's like this is what makes me a great peer, you know, and mental health has been criminalized, right? So like if you do a criminal background check on many of us, you're gonna find certain things, but how are you a system that says, you know, I want a peer to work in the forensic system, but you know, if they have too much stuff on their background, that's a liability. It's like, so do you want a peer or do you not want a peer? You know what I mean? And it's like, you know, maybe we just start buying like shirts that say I'm a peer and then turn around, not really, you know, I mean, just like but the policies, Rayshell, the openness, the you applying for the grants that make room for you to build in those job descriptions, and then you back it up with openness, and then they go, you know, to Tristan, right, and they start working in the peer team, and they little by little get integrated. But you know, what would you add to that?
Yeah, I think this is great. For us, I think we talked about that today in the opening, where our founder, Dave Leon, was talking about our theory of change is really focusing on helping people embrace their identity. So if you approach, you know, someone by really, you know, caring about their identity, we really do. Like, I hope we don't get to, people will be like, Rayshell, please don't get too big, don't get too big. But I'm like, the judge, everybody wants to see it bigger, but like, we really do. Like I care about each one of our employees, like, and their identity. And my passion also for people with criminal backgrounds, so they leave. A lot of our folks leave, like, and if when you reduce the stigma and you really get, you know, past this. You know, but I don't know if our internet's unstable, but I think in addition to, it's that balance though. And I think that's where we, you know, we're bringing in the HR consultant to help us find, like, we're going to keep our identity. That was what we said. We want to keep the environment that's friendly, but we want to have accountability. And that's the theme of our retreat and our capacity building, is putting that structure in, but first from a person approach, a whole person approach. Like, you, like Vanessa says, you matter. You're here, you're not here by accident. Now let's see what you're interested in. And I guess I'm so blessed to be able to have designed, you know, like almost every health and human service program and the whole continuum of care, like from locked facilities to, you know, wellness centers. So I get to play in like a whole bunch of different disciplines when I design programs. So I think that also makes it cool. I get to listen to folks and then integrate, you know, a forensics treatment program with like a 3D printer, like our governor's grant. Like, we were able to, like, you know, get a 3D printer, get a mug press and a t-shirt press. So, I mean, I think that all creates community and environment.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And another, question that came in through Anne, Anne says, please talk more about accountability that you touched on, and like, do you use co-reflection supervision? Are you more in person or remote working at this time? And, one of the things that I love about the Peanut Brain Management team is, I don't just contract with anyone, it's like, it's like ethics are important to me, and I just, not all good money is bad money, you know what I mean? It's like, I sold a lot of drugs in my time, it's like bad juju, like I cleanse myself of that, so it's like, if I'm gonna make money shady ways, I know how to do it, and it ain't gonna be, through, exploiting the peer movement, but if you do, compassion and love to you all, as I'm learning to continue to share love and compassion. But what I'm getting at is that you lead by example. And one of the things that Rayshell, because we're colleagues, but we're also friends, that you do, Rayshell, and I really love to see is you suit up and you show up. So you do all these different things, but accountability, you told me that, you said that starts with you, right? So the leaders in your team suit up and show up even when they don't want to, so I just want to, elevate that. And, regarding the co-reflection supervision, do you use co-reflection supervision?
I'm assuming the term is like when the person is dialoguing that you're reflecting on your own. Do you want to give like a specific, because I think we do that, but I don't know. Anne, do you want to?
Well, it's more mutual. It's actually through the thing of intentional peer support, IPS. It's based on that. And so I don't want to get into it now because I want to keep the focus on you, and we can talk later about that. Thank you.
Yeah, so there's definitely, I can put myself on the spot about the mutuality. I provide supervision to Tristan. Do you feel it's a mutual?
Yeah,
I'm putting him on the spot.
No,
No.
Yeah, I'll just speak a little bit about that and just say a lot of Painted Brain is about mutuality, is about back and forth. It's not like, even from the beginning of Painted Brain, it was very lateral, right? There is some hierarchical structure, but like if you have a passion or if you're interested in doing something, of course you have to do what we need to do to pay the bills, but it's very lateral. Like there's a lot of exploration. I will say a couple of things too, and this is an earlier comment. I just want to mention this too. Like, some of the most interesting and dynamic people I ever met were people inside of the mental health system. And often those people were required to live in the most regressive and boring environments. So one thing about Painted Brain is we want to make our environment interesting enough, dynamic enough that even, the most awesome and coolest people in the world will want to come to us. It's not like the bar is high. Like Vanessa was talking about our community center. Like the front is like a cool art gallery. We have a 3D printer. We have a sublimation machine. We have and we want to engage people, and because of Rayshell and the whole grant writing team, we can offer some of these, people to have art supplies. Like I was going to the, in the state hospital, we had arts and crafts group. You could get crayons, and but some of the most amazing artists, right? It's like, oh my God, they only had a paintbrush or some canvases, and Painted Brain kind of offers that that dynamic quality, and we really believe in the people in our system, whereas a lot of the county mental, I'm not going to trash county mental, but a lot of the county mental systems are very regressive.
Oh, yeah.
They're just you go in there, you have to go through a metal detector, you have to sign this much paperwork to even talk to someone. Painted Brain, you can sign in if you want to. You don't have to sign in, and anyone can come in. At least at our community center, anyone can come in. So that's I think that's another part of Painted Brain that makes it unique. Is we really value the experiences of people, and we want to treat people, as if they are, very valuable people, which I think is sometimes lost in the system.
Yeah, and just before Vanessa, but the accountability and the expectation is real, and I just that is something that we've grown so well. We're really good writers. We got Gabby and Melissa and Rena on this call, and Nina, who are very strong writers and analysts. So we have a strong capacity, but you know, that culture of accountability and mutuality and putting those policies and procedures in writing so that folks can have something, you know, to refer to, that's where we're at in the next stage. I mean, of course we have an HR manual, but the next level of strategic human resource management and engagement in peer practice and supervision is really being able to design policies and procedures that, you know, that are grounded, of course, and, you know, evidence-based in laws and practice, but really come from the people you're serving and your human resources. So and this is, I mean, once again, every question you're asking is on point, because literally right here, if you even check out our agenda, everything you ask right now is the intent that's set forth in this retreat that we're having, and we're bringing subject matter experts in. So we listen to folks, we listen to our staff. I mean, and this is our intention. So I really appreciate the question. I know there was one other question about, I don't want to keep talking about.
Are we in person or working remote at this time?
We're mixed. So our community center is open, and we are hopefully expanding our admin office so that we can bring most of our admin staff. There was a question from Vera. I don't know if you want to ask it, Vera, or you want us to just try to address it. I know we were probably talking. I don't know if we directly addressed it.
You know, which kind of a segue in a bit, but entrepreneurship and kind of working outside of becoming a peer specialist after you recover, because I think supervisors and people who are in the traditional mental health field as supporters, they're like, you know, you should get a job as a peer specialist, right? But not every person who's recovered can make a great peer specialist, but they can make an incredible artist or writer or, you know, something like that. And so the fact that you guys are doing the virtual reality and the computer, the programming and all of that, it's like this, it's this package where you're also supervising peers and role modeling peers to become like kind of go beyond, you know, what the traditional career path for people who recovered from mental illness. You know, it's like, I